I'm so glad y'all are here with us tonight, and I appreciate you coming out in the rain to the Benoit Community Center, and we're just so grateful for your participation. My name is Melissa Flournoy, and I'm the board chair of 10,000 Women Louisiana. We're a statewide advocacy organization working on local, state, and federal policy, and we're very excited to be in partnership with the Bayou Progressive, the Forum for Equality, the LGBTQ caucus from the Democratic Party, and the Indivisibles across the state to bring you the roadshow for the Democratic primary. And we had bad news yesterday and today about voting rights in Louisiana, and we'll address some of that in our opening remarks, and Crystal will mention that, and we'll ask our candidates about that. But at the end of the day, we're doing these road shows around the state because we believe that we have great Democratic candidates for the Senate, for Public Service Commission, for Congress, in each congressional district. And we really do need to raise the profile of these candidates in each region. We want you as voters to have a chance to meet the candidates and for the candidates to learn from you as well. One of our co-sponsors for the event is the Bayou Progressive, which is operated by Quentin Anderson. Quentin, raise your hand. Yeah, even though we may have a small turnout tonight, we are videotaping and putting all of the various forums on our websites and on the Bayou Progressive website and releasing it to the media because we really think people need to get to know our candidates. And so it's my pleasure to thank all the folks from Indivisible who've been on the planning committee, who've helped put together these forums across the state. And at this point, I would like to introduce Crystal Roman to tell you a little bit more about the Indivisible activities and do a welcome. So let's welcome Crystal.
Thank you. I'm short, so I'm going to step out of this podium. Good evening, everyone. My name is Crystal Rahman, and I'm a volunteer lead organizer for Indivisible North Louisiana. We are a nonpartisan grassroots group of concerned citizens seeking to promote civic engagement, elevate the voices of the people, and hold our elected officials accountable. Hopefully that will be you guys one day. We come from all walks of life to rally around a shared vision of our forefathers striving for a government founded upon the love of freedom, liberty, the rule of law, and just powers derived from the consent of the governed. At this very moment, democracy is being dismantled before our very eyes. I ask you all tonight, and this is not rhetorical or theoretical, are you going to stand there and let it happen? No. We are teetering upon the precipice that will be written into our nation's history books. Yesterday, the Supreme Court handed down its ruling legalizing gerrymandering and leaving underrepresented communities without recourse. Today, our governor is trying to stop our elections to redraw the congressional maps to further disenfranchise black voters and consolidate power. I had a good cry this morning, but I think I'm good now. Beneath the shadow cast by this dark cloud around our nation's democracy, please allow me to humor you with a song I wrote. Because if we don't laugh, we'll cry, right? In the darkest times, music has always brought people together. Many of you are probably familiar with the catchy song that took the internet by storm over 10 years ago. A pleasant public service announcement from a British metro warning people to be safe around trains while listing dumb ways to die. Who knows that song? Okay. So it's listing dumb ways to die, including keep a rattlesnake as a pet, sell both your kidneys on the internet, eat a tube of super glue, I wonder, what's this red button do? And so in all seriousness, I think it's time for us to write a refreshed version of that song that I'd like to call Dumb Ways for Democracy to Die. So I've written it for you guys. Should I sing it? Okay. Gerrymander all the maps to keep the people under wraps. Make the president a king while the judges in Congress kiss the ring. Dumb ways to die. This is where we all sway and be kumbaya, right? So many dumb ways to die. Dumb ways for democracy. For democracy to die. Set your voter ballots aside. Just stay home and hide. Skip the polls on voting day. Make our ancestors roll over in their graves. Dumb ways to die. So many dumb ways to die. Dumb ways for democracy. For democracy to die. But we're not going to let that happen.
Crystal might have a future as a songstress. Go, Crystal. Okay. Well, we're here tonight to celebrate democracy because we believe voting is sacred. And we believe that voters have a right to free and fair elections, regardless of what Jeff Landry has to say. And so we're moving forward with our forums around the state, today in Monroe, tomorrow in Houma, Saturday in Lake Charles, and we'll have Hammond, Covington, and Baton Rouge, because I think that hopefully the courts will stop what's going on today. And so I just think we're all really concerned about sort of this tragic news from Governor Landry and his efforts to stop the congressional primaries and sow chaos. But I'm grateful for y'all to be here, but I'm also grateful for our candidates because for the first time in many years, we've got really competent, talented people running for the United States Senate as Democrats, really competent, talented people running for each congressional district as Democrats. We've got talented Democrats running for the Public Service Commission. So there's actually a lot to celebrate. And so our format tonight is we'll hear from our Senate candidates. Everyone on each panel will have a 90-second opening remarks. Then we'll have a series of questions for each of the sets of candidates that they'll have 60 seconds to respond to. And Dan, raise up your little cards. Dan is our official timekeeper, and so he will let you know when you've got 15 seconds left or when it's time to stop, because we've got a lot of people we want to hear from and some very important questions. And so we'll start with the Senate. And so this afternoon we've got all three of our Senate candidates with us, Jamie Davis, Gary Crockett, and Nick Albares. Let's give them a round of applause. Now, because the way the current map is actually gerrymandered, we've got some folks near Monroe that are still in the 4th Congressional District and some in the 5th Congressional District. So our second panel will include Conrad Cable, who's running in the 4th Congressional District, and then the 5th Congressional District candidates Jesse Fleemner, Larry Foy, Dan McKay, Tanya Nyman, and Lindsey Garcia. And I just want to thank all of them for coming to Monroe to be part of the forum. Let's give all of them a round. Matt Gromlich, who's a candidate in the 4th, is not able to be with us tonight. And then we'll end with the Public Service Commission candidates Austin Lawson and Reverend James Green. And I'm not sure if Reverend Green's been here, will get here because of the weather, but I know Austin is here. So let's give Austin a round of applause. And I'm really grateful to my good friend Betty Ward Cooper, who's going to be our moderator for this evening. You know, Betty is an elected official. She's on the school board. She's a community leader. She's a former faculty member on ULM, and she's a tremendous advocate and leader in this community. And so please join with me in welcoming Betty Ward Cooper as our moderator.
Greetings to all. I am so honored to be here with you tonight. Melissa has given the candidates the instructions. Do you have any questions? Everything is clear? Okay, all right. We will have this first group of questioning on these topics: voting rights, governance and leadership, data centers, utility costs and environmental impact, rural economic development, accountability and transparency, agriculture and local economy, technology divide, community safety, guns and youth violence, poverty, foreign policy and war powers, health care, and affordability. And we'll get as many of these questions asked and answered as possible within the time limit. Question number 1. And the order has been determined, and you're seated in the order, starting with Nick. Okay? All right. Voting rights. The election dynamics changed today. The Supreme Court ruled in the Louisiana versus Callais case, and the governor decided for the legislature to redraw the congressional map and eliminate what is referred to as the minority districts. What do you think of the governor's decision? Pardon? Oh, okay. See, I'm sort of anxious, huh? All right. We'll start with the opening statements. 1 minute each.
Good evening. Good evening. I don't think this is working. Can y'all hear me in the back? All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Albares, and I'm a husband, a father of 3 wonderful, rambunctious kids. And I'm running for the United States Senate because I believe that every person is important. Every person has dignity, and our public policy ought to reflect that. I've spent my career working to make government work for people by expanding healthcare access, creating stable housing, and providing support services when people need them, across government and across nonprofit organizations. I'm running for the Senate to protect health coverage for the 300,000 Louisianans that would lose that coverage through the cuts in the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I call it the Big Ugly Bill. When I worked with Governor Edwards, we protected health coverage for 500,000 people and expanded health coverage. I fought these fights on the floor of the legislature, and we won. And I'm proud to announce that I've received the endorsement of Governor John Bel Edwards. He knows how to win statewide, and I'm glad that he's put that trust in me to take the fight to Republicans who are only interested in fighting for Donald Trump right now. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Gary Crockett, and I'm originally from Tallulah, which is not too far from here. I'm a 24-year Navy veteran that's retired and also a businessman. The reason that I'm running is because there's a serious urgency of you, the people here. I remember growing up, and we used to have Delta Village over in Tallulah. I remember growing up, coming here for football games, coming here for the mall. And now what we see is a lot of blight here. That blight is because the leadership that you've sent to Washington and your local leadership have not considered you, have not taken you seriously. I'm not a politician, I'm a problem solver. I'm a job creator. In addition to being a father, what I want to do is go to Washington and be your voice. I'm not an insider. I don't have those past problems of being a politician. What I want you to do is trust me and send you to Washington.
Good evening. I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I'm Jamie Davis, a farmer from Tensas Parish. And I want to tell you how a farmer ends up sitting before you as the endorsed candidate of the Louisiana Democratic Party for the U.S. Senate. Washington spends millions trying to figure out how to talk to people of the rural working class people. I don't have to figure that out. I'm one of them. I'm a third generation row crop farmer. I grow cotton, corn, and soybeans on 3,200 acres. My grandfather was a sharecropper. I have signed the front and the backs of checks. I know what it means to fight for what you deserve. And I'm the neighbor of the party, the person that the party has been trying to reach for years. I got into this race with no political connections and no big donors. Just a simple belief that something has to change. So I took the fight. Here's what I know. The path back to power runs through the South. Because Louisiana has fertile grounds from the Delta to the Gulf Coast, from Shreveport to New Orleans. People are joining this movement not because of party labels, but because we're talking the things that matters most to people.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll move on now with the first question, voting rights. The election dynamics changed today. The Supreme Court ruled in the Louisiana versus Callais case, and the governor decided for the legislature to redraw the congressional map and eliminate what is referred to as the minority districts. What do you think of the governor's decision? What will you do to protect the voting rights of Louisiana citizens? And how will you protect access to voting and ensure fair, transparent election administration? Yes.
So this decision was completely abysmal. It is a moral failure, and it's an anti-democratic power move by Jeff Landry to disenfranchise voters and take away black representation here in Louisiana. Now, this election that's happening on May 16th, it's not just happening on May 16th, it's already happening. People have submitted ballots, mail-in. Early voting starts May 2nd. This is voter suppression, and it's the most anti-democratic chaos since Jim Crow. He recently did this to the duly elected clerk of court down in New Orleans, and now he's trying to do it to Cleo Fields. Now, Representative Fields has served for years and is a public servant, and we need to fight to protect this seat. I will support the John Lewis Voting Rights Act in Congress as well.
So concerning the Supreme Court decision, I see a lot of speeches. I hear a lot of rhetoric. But my question is this: what are you going to do about it? The fact is that the governor can make these decisions, but there are also decisions that we can make. One is to make sure that your neighbor, your family, go out to vote. Despite the fact that how the lines are drawn, we still have power. And now it's time to take action. It's time to reorganize our powers. It's time to reorganize the Democratic Party as well, so that we can activate and be proactive instead of reactive. So I say take heart, get out and vote, and let's change things.
Today has been one of the hardest days that I've had since I announced my candidacy on December the 12th. To work hard and build coalitions all over the state, to see people just get smashed. It is horrible, horrific. I would like to use some bad words, but I'm gonna keep it clean. Things that look like a cow and comes out of the cow's butt. But one thing I will say about this, because in my eye, there is no real answer to this. Because when you take away the rights of people that have the opportunity to vote, and you take their rights, and now you finna change the whole United States to look something totally different from what it was, on one decision of one group of people, of 9 individuals that are working against humans and their rights. It is totally ridiculous. And the only way we can change this is by coming together as a people, coming together as a one, for the question that was asked. How can you answer a question like that when you don't even know what the scope of this country will look like after this ruling has been really enforced? Because this not just Louisiana. It can look like this over the whole United States. And you cannot even imagine what this nation will look like. I'm done, thank you.
Question number 2, and we'll start with Gary Crockett. It's on governance and leadership. In this time of extreme polarization and political efforts to disregard the needs of the voters, our values, character, and trust important. I'll repeat it. In this time of extreme polarization and political efforts to disregard the needs of the voters, are values, character, and trust important? And what principles guide your decision-making when you face competing priorities in your district or the state? Gary?
Okay, so I'll start with the last one. The way I handle competing priorities is I take care of what is most important and what benefits everyone at large. Other than that, the family is the most important thing for me. How is the family handling what is happening in everyday life? How are the bills getting paid? What is happening as far as the salaries are concerned? Right now, we have a leadership that only cares about big business. They don't care about family. We can spend $1 billion a day on a war, but we cannot pay HCA subsidies, which shows us where their values are. It's time to bring things back to the kitchen table. It's time to bring things back home. It's time to take care of each other and take care of the people of America, and especially Louisiana.
Priorities for me will have to be our future. Because for me, being an old man like I am, my life is set. I can get up, go to the farm, work, come on back, take it easy. But for my grandbabies, that's what's most important to me. Because if we don't have a way to see forward. How can you go forward if you don't see a path to going? And we all must have faith. But this is not about our spiritual beings. This is about being able to see to move forward with your everyday life. And we should be able to see a path forward. And that's not what we see right now. We have to fight for our future, starting with education. We have to fight for our future, giving our babies and young ones a quality of life that they can have decent health care.
Republicans like to talk about family values a lot. You know, the family values that I believe in, including policy decisions to make child care access universal, to create a national paid family and sick leave program so that everyone is able to take off of work when they get sick or when they have a new child, to provide for ending the cuts to Medicaid that they've put in place, and to more than double the minimum wage and index it to inflation so that it goes up as costs rise. Now, I believe in Washington we need a change, because right now what we see are people dividing one another, and Republicans just working to talk down. I want to bring people together. I want to provide hope and provide a new way of politics in this country.
This next question will start with Jamie Davis. It's regarding data centers, utility costs, and environmental impact. Northeast Louisiana is now at the center of a major new AI and data center push, with state leaders celebrating the scale of the investment. But people here have seen this pattern before. Communities are promised economic transformation while the public is left worrying about utility costs, environmental strain, and whether the jobs ever truly match the hype. As a senator, what federal standards, incentives, or protections do you support to make sure data center growth does not leave Louisiana families subsidizing private expansion through higher bills for electricity and water, weaker safeguards, or disappointing job returns?
Well, to start, the first thing is I will support a bill that suspends all new data centers coming into the state of Louisiana until we know all of the details. And when I say we, I mean the communities in which they will be built in. The people must know what's going on with the data centers. You can't come in and get with a few legislators and tiptoe in the back corner back there and cut a deal, and next thing you know, everybody's bills are more. The people need to make that decision whether or not they want those data centers into their communities. I'll support a bill for that. For data centers that are already here, they must pay their own fair share. Because number one, the things that I found out from the research that I've done, that most of the people are working there, they are not from that community. That's why you see all of those RV units. That's why you see all of the hotels full around them. Because if it was the working people that lived in the community, why do you need all of those things? So here it is. We got to hold them accountable.
So costs are going up across the board, and that includes utility costs. And we look at the amount of power that is required for a data center and the resources, it's tremendous. We need a robust federal regulatory standard for data centers that demands and requires that these tech companies that are run by billionaires, that they pay their fair share plus, that we ensure that they're putting more into the grid so that costs for consumers go down. Because right now the Trump administration is cutting renewable energy, and we need all of the types of energy so that we can bring costs down for ratepayers, for all of us. Because right now, with these data centers, there is a lax regulatory environment. We need a strong National Environmental Protection Act that includes data centers.
So data centers are not new. They've been around ever since the 60s. They're just more prevalent in the South. Legislation that calls for studies are only gateway legislation, because those studies usually lead to implementation of the same. What we need to do is make sure that we have legislation with teeth in it, where there's regulation, governance, and monitoring of these data centers. Usually they're in areas that are not population dense. The same should be here as well. They shouldn't be in your backyard. And when I say your backyard, I'm talking about within miles of where there's a population. So that legislation that keeps data centers from being in your backyard and making sure that if they're implemented, that we have the governance and the rules to make sure that they adhere to standards that keep our environment livable is what I would do.
Gary Crockett, we'll start with you with this next question. It's regarding rural economic development. Northeast Louisiana is rural with small towns and lots of agriculture, and we see more people moving out of these parishes. So what is your plan to encourage job creation and economic development and strengthen Louisiana's workforce pipeline, especially for rural and underserved communities? How will you support small businesses and local entrepreneurs in regions that have not seen recent economic growth?
So I'm from North Louisiana. I'm from Tallulah, which is about 50 miles from here. One of the things we have to do is, it's time to innovate. And what I mean by innovate is we have to stop sending every kid to college. College really isn't for everyone. For some kids, we need to send them to trade school. Right now, we have a high shortage of electricians, plumbers, and HVAC techs. Those are great careers that last a lifetime. There's no AI or robot that's going to come and do that job. In addition to that, we need some innovation centers as well. So those kids that have great minds and great ideas, they have a place where they can actually implement those. We have plenty of land up here. It's time to use it for the next generation.
Rural Louisiana, has been ignored for a long time. And if I'm the senator after this election over, the first thing I will do is bring industry that relates to the community so that it matches. When you're in the rural part, the agriculture parts of the state, we need fertilizer plants, because all of the fertilizer that comes into Northeast Louisiana is shipped in or trucked in. We need fertilizer plants. In the areas where we have bigger industry with timber, you bring in lumber companies. In the areas on towards Shreveport and those areas, There's one thing that Shreveport is missing that it used to have, and that is big-time bass fishing tournaments that brought millions of dollars to Shreveport. How do you know, James? Because I fished a many of them and stayed a many a nights in the hotels there. But that industry is gone.
You know, as we started tonight, this is a hard day, and I feel for all of our congressional candidates. I feel especially for Congressman Cleo Fields. And I start with Representative Fields because back in the 90s, he introduced a bill called the Delta Initiatives Act that would bring investment into our rural communities in the Delta region. And it would ensure that there was infrastructure. And that's what we need. We know what's needed. We just have to prioritize it. We need to bring in the rural infrastructure. We need to bring in the rural broadband. And we need to reverse these cuts to Medicaid, which are threatening our rural hospitals, which are also huge economic drivers of our communities. When I worked for Governor Edwards, not a single rural hospital closed, and that was in large part thanks to the Medicaid expansion. We need to prioritize and invest in our rural communities.
Jamie Davis, we'll start with you with this next question. It's about accountability and transparency. You know, in our area here in Northeast Louisiana, we often don't get the focus and attention that we deserve. How will you ensure transparency and accountability in your office, especially around public spending and constituent services?
Well, the first thing I would do is ban stock trading by the legislators. That'd be the first thing. But the next thing for transparency is, you know, I kind of got this smirk on my face because I think each and every one of you know that if I win this race, that I will be watched like by a magnifying glass. So transparency will not be a problem with me. The other things is that you have to hope your office have to be held accountable. You have to make your records be held accountable and be transparent, and you report every quarter so that the people will know that you're doing the job and you're also spending their money the way they want it to be spent. Because when you send a senator to Washington, you're doing exactly what the word says. He was sent by you. Thank you.
So I love getting in the details of the appropriations process and budgets. And I believe that our budgets truly are moral documents. They tell us what we prioritize as a society. And so I would ensure that every person in the state of Louisiana had an insider view into what the federal government is spending money on in a way that we can break down that's understandable. That's work that I did when I was at the Louisiana Budget Project, serving as a policy analyst, figuring out how we can take these really complex topics but make them understandable for all people. And as far as constituent services, I would ensure that we have people across the state of Louisiana that are solution-oriented, because that's what I'm about. No matter what problem, large or small, whether even it's in the scope of my office, I would ensure that our staff works to get solutions. My nonprofit background helps seeing that to find the resources throughout the community, whether it's federal, state, or through a community organization.
So I would set up a website for each piece of legislation that allows everyone at home to see exactly what we're voting on. In addition to that, I would also have a survey after each piece of that legislation so that they can tell me how we need to vote on that legislation. In addition to that, when it comes to budgets, it's very important that those budgets have teeth in it where it actually shows you where to spend the money and how to spend the money. Our current president was able to take money that was in one budget and spend it in another way. So if we make sure that we're very specific in how that money is spent, even within a department, that will give us the transparency that we need. In addition to that, I feel that the only people that should be able to donate to a campaign are those people that can vote. No corporations, no lobbyists, no APAC, or anyone else. If you can't vote, you should not be able to donate. Thank you.
This next question has to do with agriculture and local economy. Nick Albares, we'll start with you. Much of Louisiana is dominated by timber and agriculture land. Because of the inconsistent use of tariffs and the impact of foreign military actions in Iran and the Middle East, many farmers in the region are being squeezed by higher costs for supplies, equipment, and fertilizer, and seeing the cost of doing business go up. In addition, with the elimination of the U.S. aid and other national policies, local farmers are seeing the market options for their agriculture products diminish. What is the role of the federal government in addressing the needs of the agriculture economy in Louisiana? What are your priorities to protect Louisiana farmers?
So once again, it comes back to priorities. We need to reverse the cuts. You brought up U.S. aid. You know, people think about that as foreign assistance, but that impacts our farmers right here in the United States who are growing the crops, creating the grain that is being sent around the world to aid people who are truly vulnerable. But we also need Congress to serve as a check on the executive branch, both for trade wars and actual wars, because the irresponsible tariff policies are causing costs to go up for our farmers and for consumers. And this war in Iran, it has caused gas prices, fuel prices here in Louisiana, to go up by 40% just since the conflict began. And that trickles throughout all parts of the economy. We need to hold the executive branch accountable, and right now Congress is just going along with whatever the president wants.
It is time for innovation in farming. One of the problems with farming is that farmers are still doing the same thing they've done before. It's time to be innovative as far as our crops are concerned. There's too much that we import in, even on the food side. When you go to the grocery store, you see a lot of fruit and vegetables from some other countries. It's time to start growing some of that here. I think that we have subsidized farmers to the point that we have actually handicapped them. When we look at other countries, they don't have the problems that we have. And that innovation has to start now. If it doesn't start now, at some point, they're going to stop the subsidies for the farmers, and we're going to lose more farms. So it has to be a partnership.
All we want is a fair shot to sell our grain, our cotton, on a market that's not been tampered with. That's all we want. I can speak on this subject because I am one of them. All we want is a fair shot to grow a crop and be able to sell it on a market that hasn't been tampered with. I'm going to say it again. All we want is an opportunity to sell our crops on a fair market that hadn't been tampered with. What other industry is there, Conrad, Mr. Otis, that you grow something or you manufacture something and somebody else tell you what they gonna give you for your stuff? It's ridiculous. But to answer the question, we need a brand new farm bill. A farm bill comprised of a safety net with crop insurance reform, and also with a reform that slows down the markets to where farmers just grow. When you oversaturate anything, it gets full. And so we need to slow us down just a little bit. They gave us the freedom to farm a few years back. We need to slow that down, because when your market is oversaturated with cotton, corn, and grain, where you going to sell it at when the tariffs have pushed the value of what you selling to lower than other countries?
The next question has to do with the technology divide. Gary, we'll start with you. Across North Louisiana, many families still do not have access to high-speed internet services. So students and families are not able to fully effective in a modern economy that is dependent on technology. What are your priorities to address the technology infrastructure of rural Louisiana, address the need for cost-effective and reliable electrical grid, and ensure access to modern technology for Louisiana schools, families, and businesses?
Okay, so first of all, I'm tired of the people being hoodwinked. During the previous administration, during Bell Edwards, billions of dollars were sent down here for broadband. The reason that most people don't have it is because there was no regulation, monitoring of what the contractors did. Instead, the people are still purchasing internet from other companies. That has to stop. The only way the contractors should get paid, it should be based upon how many citizens were actually served. The money was sent down to serve citizens. That has to stop. In addition to that, for other innovations, it's the same way. It's time to bring innovation in, but make sure that it touches each one of the citizens. When we look at the number of dollars that was spent on broadband, it would have paid for internet for the next 5 to 10 years for free for each one of the citizens here in Louisiana.
Broadband is really important and really can change North Louisiana, because to start with, we already have rural hospitals that are on the brink. But if we had broadband, now we have the capabilities of having telehealth. To do those kind of things, in order to do telehealth, you have to have 100 up and 100 down to make it work. And it can't be no flaky signal. It has to be solid as a rock, but it takes plenty of money to make that happen. And a lot of space, because as we all know, being in rural Louisiana, there's miles between neighbors. And that is the disconnect. It can change the way rural Louisiana works, because if I had broadband on my farm, that means I finally could connect my tractors to the internet.
You've heard me say the word priority a lot tonight, and I think in this time it's appropriate because it comes down to what we're prioritizing. When the U.S. government decided that we were going to invest in rural electrification and make sure that everyone had power, we did it. When the U.S. government decides that we're going to send someone to the moon or into space, we do it. And right now, when this government is deciding to send billions of dollars into bombs in Iran, they do it. So we need to prioritize spending the money, not in those ways, not in terms of bombs in Iran, but in broadband for communities. And so broadband means connectivity. It means the ability to go to school remotely. It means being able to do telework. And so we need to prioritize it.
This next question will start with Jamie Davis. Has to do with community safety, guns, and youth violence. Louisiana political environment focuses on the constitutional right to carry a gun and open carry and the proliferation of guns in every community. Yet people are concerned about community safety and youth violence. What are the policy options that you support to reduce gun violence and improve community safety? How will you support evidence-based approaches to reducing crime while protecting gun ownership and civil rights?
I am a gun owner. I'm a gun toter. There's one in the truck outside right now. But here it is. I believe the gun violence that we see is not based on a gun. It's based on the fact that the current and previous Mr. Orange Man has taken everything away from the youth that can help them become responsible citizens and adults. Every program that children have, they're cutting them. But they're not cutting the prison pipeline, are they? They're not cutting the prison pipeline. So how can you expect a child to have its best when you don't give him an opportunity to have his best, but you're ready to send him off to a cage somewhere on the first opportunity that something changes in his life?
So this is real personal to me, and our time tonight is short, so I can't get into the story completely. But the short story is that my wife and I were shot at 3 years ago in our home, behind our closed door. 7 shots through the house by someone who eventually was found and apprehended and is now in a mental health facility. We see too many tragedies throughout our communities here in Louisiana that are at the intersection of mental health and gun violence. And so I believe that we need laws that ensure that people with mental health struggles are not able to get a firearm. So that means red flag laws that can flag when someone is a danger to themselves or to their communities. That means making sure that we have universal background checks, and also that we have safe incentives for safe storage so that people can store their firearms and keep them away from kids.
There are 2 issues concerning firearms. One, we have too many in America, over 500 million. We only have about 300 million people here in America. In addition to that, I think it's a lot of false security. As someone who's been in the military for 24 years, I know that a lot of people who own guns have a false sense of security because they have that weapon. They're not equipped with the tools to reason and to negotiate and to handle issues in other ways. So we do need legislation. Number one, there should be a moratorium on how many guns are produced each year. Most people that want one already have one. In addition to that, we need to make sure that during background checks that we check to see what is the mental status of that person. In the general population, we need to make sure that we equip the population with other tools to handle their issues.
This next question is on poverty, and Nick Albares, we'll start with you. Louisiana is one of the poorest states in the country. Nearly half of the state's people are barely getting by, according to United Way. The federal government is cutting Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP benefits, and the impact is devastating on Louisiana families. What is the impact of these cuts, and what will you do to protect Louisiana's families? How will you address the root causes of violence, including poverty and lack of opportunity?
So we have to start by ending the cuts to SNAP, to Medicaid that we've talked about. We need to reverse those and strengthen our healthcare system, stop rural hospital closures. We also need, I would sign on as a co-sponsor to the Fresh Food Act, which provides incentives for grocery stores to locate in rural and underserved communities. And I would also work on housing stability for policies that support renters and that investigate corporate landlords who are trying to price gouge. I would also work to expand the child tax credit. During President Biden's administration, the enhanced child tax credit cut child poverty in half throughout this country. And as I stated earlier, I would more than double the minimum wage, and I would index it to inflation so that it went up automatically when prices went up, so that we didn't have to come back every few years to raise it. You know, the minimum wage hasn't been raised in 16 years in this country. And so those are just some of the policies that I would champion to make Louisiana affordable so that families can thrive.
As an owner of 4 companies, I can tell you that we definitely need to raise the minimum wage. No one in my companies make less than $15 an hour to start. We can't go much higher than that immediately, or otherwise we're going to fall on our face. Every company is going to make a decision on whether or not they want to keep those people or put that load of work on the next person. Yes, we need to make sure that we have a livable wage, which I feel starts at $15 an hour. In addition to that, we have a model already for how we can have a sustainable life here in rural Louisiana, and that is in the military. The military provides recreation, they provide a good paying job, they provide health care, and that same model should be used for everyone here in America. We should make sure that we have community centers such as this. We should make sure that they're well equipped and that they have options and innovations.
I would start with raising the minimum wage to $17.50. I would also cap the prescription insulin cost at $35. I would also expand the child tax credit. I would also support child development centers so that parents don't have to spend all of their money being able to try to have a place for their children to go while they're working. I also would put a cap on energy costs when they just try to gouge you when the first weather thing come. It get too hot, your electric bill go up. It get too cold, your electric bill go up. You got to put a cap on that because they already have those weather events built into their models. They're just gouging people on purpose.
The last question for this group has to do with health care. In Northeast Louisiana, health care access is already fragile for many families, and health care is becoming one of the quiet crises, really, putting pressure on households from every direction. What would be your first federal priority to improve health care access and affordability in this region? And what steps will you take to expand access to affordable health care, especially in rural parishes?
Whose turn was it? Who went
Okay.
first on that last one, guys?
So it's Gary's. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the first thing I would do is I would hold those contractors accountable that did not implement broadband the way they should have here, because you can't have anything new without infrastructure. Then I would implement new facilities based upon the need in all of the rural areas. Another hospital where there needs to be a hospital, more clinics where there needs to be clinics, and also areas where there isn't broadband where they can go to a particular station or a clinic and have those virtual appointments. I think that's very important. In addition to that, I would make sure that I educate the people more on having their prescriptions mailed to them. We spend a lot of time and waste a lot of energy here in rural communities when we have to travel to pick up prescriptions, when we have to travel to a doctor's appointment that may have just been a follow-up that we can do virtually. Those are the things that I would do to help improve the health care.
It's near and dear to me because I live in a rural area. If the one big ugly bill succeeds and goes into the new year as a law, and the hospitals around me that are fragile and they close, that means one bad car accident and it's 70 miles to an emergency room. That's not life for real people. We have to roll back the ACA subsidies and bring back the money that was cut out of health care. We have to bring back the hospital systems that gives them the ability to be paid on time. They can't hold the money up, which causes the backlogs in all of these hospitals that causing them to be fragile like they are. 60 seconds go fast, don't it?
So I think first we have to be clear about the problems that we have right now. And whomever that you and voters across the state decide to send into this race to take on the Republican nominee, we need to make it very clear that we had a senator who's a medical doctor, who voted to slash health care to the tune of $1 trillion.
Yes, sir.
And we have a congresswoman who represents a district that has the third most constituents that receive Medicaid in the entire country.
54%.
Voted to slash Medicaid. So my number one priority will be to reverse those cuts in Congress and to take the fight to them in this general election. Because we need everyone to know that health care is on the ballot, that rural hospitals are on the ballot, that dignity is on the ballot. Because we can't let these Republicans just take away our rights and our health care. And it does go fast.
Go fast, don't it?
Thank you, gentlemen. All right. Well, our next segment will be with the, pardon? Okay, all right. Closing statements, and we'll start with Jamie Davis.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Jamie Davis, a farmer and a business owner from Tensas, and I'm asking you for your vote. I'm not running on promises, I'm running on proof. As vice president of parish government, I fought to get parish employees their first raise in years because hard work deserves dignity. I fought to keep ambulance service open because when a family dials 911, help should come. I negotiated to keep our clinics and dentists open because health care shouldn't be based on your zip code. I kept waste pickup affordable and balanced budget respected taxpayer dollars, completed the Texas Lane project in waterproof, and fought for courthouse renovations to keep our courthouse safe and secure. In small town government, there's nowhere to hide. If a road is bad, the people know about it. If an ambulance don't come, the people know about it. If a budget fails, the people know about it. This is the difference in this race. I'm the only candidate that voters had trusted to keep their roads safe, to keep their health care coverage, also to take care of their tax dollars. I'm Jamie Davis, number 3 on your ballot, the Louisiana Democratic Party endorsed candidate. Thank you.
So right now, we have 3 Republicans running in this race that they seem to be fighting for one thing. They're fighting to see who is closest to Donald Trump. My promise to you is that I'm going to be fighting to be closest to the people of Louisiana. We have a governor that's pushing anti-democratic practices, and I think we need to be focused on shared values. Because, look, I think everybody wants to walk out of their home onto a safe street. Everybody wants good health care and great schools for their kids where the teachers are well paid. Everybody wants a job that pays a living wage. And we all want to breathe clean air and drink clean water. So I'm going to fight to ensure that billionaires like Elon Musk pay their fair share. I've spent my 20-year career in public service fighting for Louisiana families, fighting for working people. And I believe that I'm ready to go toe-to-toe with Cassidy, Letlow, or Fleming to make the case that we need to come together as a country. We need to stop the division that's coming out of Washington, D.C. I've been in these fights before, and I've won. And I'm ready to get in this fight here in the United States Senate. So my name is Nick Albares. I'm running for the United States Senate because you are important. And we all deserve public policy that reflects that. I'm number 1 on your ballot, and I hope that I've earned your vote tonight.
I'm Gary Crockett, and I'm here to bring you something different. We don't need the same that we've had time and time again. We don't need the Washington rhetoric. What we need now is someone who's going to be practical, not performative, but someone who's going to create jobs, as I've done with 4 companies, someone who's going to think about the people at all times. That is the reason that I'm running. That is why I'm asking for your vote. Because I'm someone that's in touch, having grown up in Tallulah, and now I live in New Orleans. So it's the best of both worlds. Someone who served in the military, who understands what it means to fight for your people and stand up for them at the same time. It's not going to be sexy. It's going to take a whole lot of hard work. And that's what I'm willing to do, and that's what I'm asking you to send me to do.
Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing with us your vision tonight.